Right. So you want to know if the inheritance games is worth your time, right? Like if you're into mysteries like Knives Out, but maybe with
Hmm.
a little bit more of a YA romance vibe.
All right.
Well, we're going to do a deep dive today looking at that using both like a professional critic's take on the book.
Mm.
Plus, we've got a whole bunch of opinions from Goodreads readers. So we're going to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, I think I can give you the verdict right up front. It's a really fun, fast-paced read, but, probably not one that's going to blow your mind or anything. Like if you're
Okay.
looking for something to devour on a rainy weekend, and just enjoy the ride. This could be it.
All right. So not high literature,
Right.
but maybe good entertainment.
Yeah.
So give me the rundown. What is the basic story here?
So the main character is Avery Grambs,
Okay.
and she's a pretty average high school student.
Mm-hmm.
And her life gets flipped upside down when she inherits billions of dollars from this billionaire. She's never even met Tobias Hawthorne.
Hold on. A random high schooler inherits billions of dollars. That's
Mhm.
a bit of a leap.
It's definitely a fantastical premise,
Yeah.
but the inheritance comes with a catch. To claim the money Avery has to live in Hawthorne House for a year.
Okay.
And this isn't just any house. It's full of puzzles, riddles, and hidden passages.
Wow.
Created by Tobias Hawthorne himself.
Oh, wow.
It's like he set up this giant game for her to solve even after his death.
Okay. That does sound kind of intriguing. So it's not just about the money.
Yeah.
There's this whole mystery that's layered in.
Right.
But she's living with the family that he basically disinherited.
Exactly.
So that's got to be tense.
Oh, absolutely. You've got the 4 Hawthorne grandsons who are all understandably, confused and upset about being cut out of the will.
Yeah.
And of course, each of them has their own distinct personality and dynamic with Avery.
Okay.
You've got Grayson, who's kind of the golden boy and initially sees Avery as a gold digger.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's Jameson, the rebellious one, who's almost treating Avery like a puzzle to be solved herself.
Oh, interesting.
So you've got all these different personalities clashing.
Yeah, I'm starting to see where those comparisons to Knives Out come in.
Right.
Like big family, lots of secrets, someone dies.
Yeah.
And the drama unfolds.
Exactly.
But what about the writing itself? Is it actually well written or is it just kind of fluffy?
That's where it gets a little tricky.
Oh, okay.
The prose is definitely accessible and easy to read,
Uh-huh.
which is part of what makes it such a page turner.
Okay.
But I will say some of the Goodreads reviewers, they found it a bit simplistic
Okay.
or repetitive, especially in the dialogue.
Okay.
They felt like certain characters, particularly Max, weren't very well developed and ended up sounding a bit one-dimensional.
So maybe not the most nuanced characters,
Right.
but it sounds like the plot itself really seems to have people hooked.
Yeah, the puzzle element seems to be the real winner here.
Okay.
A lot of reviewers mention how much they enjoyed, trying to figure out the clues alongside Avery. And the house itself becomes almost like another character with all its secrets and hidden rooms.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's definitely a big draw.
Speaking of secrets,
Yes.
a lot of the online chatter mentions this whole love triangle thing.
Right.
So is that a major part of the story or just like a side plot?
It's definitely a significant element.
All right.
Avery finds herself drawn to 2 of the Hawthorne brothers.
Okay. So we've got the love triangle.
Right. Which, let's be honest, it's a pretty classic YA trope.
Yeah.
But where this gets interesting is that the love triangle isn't as straightforward as it might seem.
Okay.
It's not just about who Avery will choose.
Okay.
It's tied into this larger mystery of Tobias Hawthorne's intentions and whether he was manipulating the brothers' affections as part of his grand game.
Okay, now that's a twist I was not expecting.
Right.
So it's not just a simple, like who will she choose kind of triangle.
Right.
There's more depth to it than that.
Exactly. And that's where the writing, I think, really shines. Barnes uses the love triangle as a way to explore themes of trust manipulation and the weight of family legacies.
That's fascinating. Sounds like there's more to unpack here than just a,
Uh-huh.
light, fluffy read.
Yeah.
But how does it compare to other similar books we've talked about, Knives Out? But what about something like The Selection?
Yeah. Yeah, the selection comparison comes up a lot, because both books feature a young woman suddenly thrust into this world of wealth and privilege,
Right.
surrounded by potential love interests.
Yeah.
But the Inheritance Games takes that trope in a different direction. The focus isn't on Avery, vying for a crown or social status.
Right.
It's about her unraveling this mystery and trying to understand the motivations of a man who, frankly seems a little obsessed with her.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. It's not just a competition for love and attention. There's like a darker,
Right.
more psychological element at play.
Exactly. And that ties into another book that people often compare it to, The Westing Game. Both stories involve these intricate puzzles orchestrated by a deceased eccentric millionaire.
Hmm.
But what sets the inheritance games apart is this personal connection between Avery and Tobias Hawthorne. Even though they never met, he seems to know her in a way that feels both unsettling and intriguing.
Yeah, that's where that whole surveillance theme comes in, right?
Right.
A lot of reviewers mentioned that they thought it was creepy that Tobias Hawthorne was watching Avery before she even knew he existed.
Exactly. And Barnes doesn't shy away from that aspect at all.
Okay.
She actually uses the surveillance to create this sense of paranoia and suspense.
Mm-hmm.
You're constantly wondering, what else is he watching? What else does he know?
Right.
It definitely adds a layer of complexity to the story, especially as you start to question whether Tobias Hawthorne's intentions were truly benevolent or if there was something more sinister at play.
I have to admit, I was initially skeptical about this book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounded like a pretty typical YA romance
Yeah.
with a maybe interesting mystery thrown in. But the more we're talking about it, the more I'm realizing that there's a real depth to the story.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so clever,
Yeah.
Barnes takes these familiar tropes and twists them just enough to keep you guessing.
Uh-huh.
She also does a great job of grounding the story in Avery's perspective,
Okay.
Even though she's surrounded by this wealth and privilege, she never loses sight of who she is or where she came from.
And that makes her a relatable protagonist, even if her situation is far from relatable.
Absolutely. The reviewers who really connected with the book praised Avery for her intelligence, her resourcefulness, and her refusal to be intimidated by the Hawthorne family or their fortune.
Okay, so we've talked about the good, the intriguing, and the maybe a little creepy.
Right.
What about the downsides? Every book has its flaws, right?
Yeah, of course.
What are some of the things that reviewers weren't so keen on?
Well, as we mentioned before, the writing style isn't going to win any literary awards.
Right.
It's straightforward and accessible, which may be a good thing for a quick read, but some readers found it lacking in depth or nuance.
And what about the characters? We talked about Avery, but are the Hawthorne brothers actually interesting, or are they just kind of there to be brooding and handsome?
The brothers are definitely a mixed bag.
Okay.
Some reviewers loved them, especially Jameson,
Oh.
who gets a lot of attention for his rebellious streak and his witty banter with Avery.
Mm-hmm.
But others, found them a bit flat or stereotypical, especially Grayson,
Yeah.
who can come across as a bit too perfect and emotionally distant.
And then there's that cliffhanger ending.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people seem to be frustrated by that.
Yeah, the cliffhanger is a classic YA move.
Right.
And it definitely serves its purpose of making you want to pick up the next book.
Yeah.
But some readers felt like it was a bit of a cheap trick, especially since the first book doesn't really resolve any of the major plot lines.
So it's one of those books where you're kind of left hanging waiting for answers.
Exactly, which can be exciting, if you're invested in the story and the characters, but frustrating if you prefer your books to have a sense of closure.
Right.
But I think even with the cliffhanger, the Inheritance Games offers enough twists and turns to keep you entertained.
Okay, so it's not perfect, but it sounds like it has the potential to be a really fun, engaging read.
It definitely does, especially if you're looking for a book that's going to keep you guessing and make you want to keep turning the pages.
So if someone's on the fence about this one, what would you say are the key factors they should consider to decide if it's worth their time?
I think the biggest thing is your tolerance for YA tropes.
Yeah.
If you enjoy love triangles, witty banter, and a bit of over-the-top drama, you'll probably have a good time with this book.
So if you're looking for like deep character studies
Right.
or complex social commentary,
Yeah.
this might not be the right fit.
This is more about pure entertainment.
Okay.
It's a puzzle box of a story, and the fun is in trying to solve it alongside Avery.
And what about that whole surveillance aspect?
Yeah.
Would you say that adds a level of creepiness that might put some readers off?
It definitely depends on your personal preferences.
Okay.
Some reviewers found it unsettling, while others thought it added this intriguing layer of mystery.
Right.
It raises questions about the ethics of wealth and power, and how far someone might go to control the lives of those around them.
So not just a light, fluffy read after all.
Exactly. There are some deeper themes at play, even if they're not always explored in great depth.
Okay.
Ultimately, I think the best way to decide if the inheritance games is for you is to ask yourself what kind of reading experience you're looking for.
Yeah.
If you want a fast-paced escapist story with a healthy dose of mystery and romance,
Uh,
then go for it.
yeah, it sounds like it could be perfect for like a beach read or a lazy weekend when you just want to get lost in a good story.
Absolutely. Just be prepared for that cliffhanger ending.
Yeah.
It's definitely a
Cliffhanger.
to-be-continued situation.
All right, so a fun, twisty mystery with a dash of romance, a touch of creepiness, and a whole lot of unanswered questions, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Inheritance Games has a little something for everyone, as long as you know what you're getting into.
Exactly. It's not going to change your life, but it might just keep you entertained for a few hours.
Well, there you have it. Hopefully, this deep dive has given you a better sense of whether the Inheritance Games deserves a spot on your TBR pile.
Yes.
If you decide to give it a read, let us know what you think. What did you think of the puzzles?
Yes.
Were you Team Jameson or Team Grayson?
Right.
And did that surveillance aspect totally creep you out, or did you find it intriguing?
Let us know.
Until next time, happy reading.